Welcome everybody to Jewish Journeys Limud, what we hope will be a wonderful evening with members of the Tikvah community and beyond, represented by all of our camps. This evening also serves to kick off an exciting week marking Tikvah at 50 and ADA at 30. I'm sure everybody knows that the ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was signed into law July 26, 1990 by President George H.W. Bush. It's a civil rights law that prohibits discrimination based on disability, also requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations. You will read a lot about that this week in the news wherever you look, which is good. Before we tell you more about some of the events that are going to be ahead in the Tikvah, we'd like to share a short video that was prepared by the more than 40 participants in our virtual Voc Ed training and socialization program, which has been taking place. It will be 12 sessions total. And the members of, thank you to Becky Birch, who is the Assistant Tikvah Director at Ramah, for helping put this together. This will give you a little taste of what's to come. So Nancy, if you could please share the video.
We go.
Happy birthday, Tikvah! Ramah!
Happy 50th birthday, Tikvah. Go, Ramah, do it home.
I want to say happy birthday to Tikvah because I really love being with it. And I really enjoyed the Tikvah program at Camp Ramah Jonathan in the activity program, and it was a great program. Camp Ramah in England, and Tikvah, I love Voc Ed, I'm in there both ways.
Happy Tikvah, yay! And I want to say that being in Tikvah and Acai at Ramah, Wisconsin was a really great experience for me. So thank you.
Happy birthday, Ami Vanessa!
Happy 50th Tikvah. I love making new friends and learning and looking at Ramah doing. Happy birthday, Ramah. I like spending time with you guys.
I do go to Camp Ramah, Wisconsin. I want to wish the Camp Ramah, Wisconsin for a happy 50th.
I want to say happy birthday to a lot of Tikvah. I'm so excited to go to Camp back so bad. Castle Heights in California. And what I liked was doing the newspaper.
Awesome. So you've enjoyed doing the newspaper with Camp Ramah Ojai this summer.
Happy birthday, Tikvah.
Happy birthday, Tikvah!
So I've been going to camp for like a lot of summers.
Which camp?
Camp Ramah, Canada since 2013 for like 8 summers until this one. So I want to say happy birthday to my dog Tikvah, and I really like this program because I like to talk about being professional like we did today.
Happy birthday, Tikvah! I love the Tikvah program at Camp Ramah.
Happy 50th birthday to Camp Ramah, and I can't wait. I can't wait for next summer when we come back. When all of us are actually in Camp Ramah and get to spend quality time with our friends other than friends on Zoom. And we still love you, and happy birthday! Woo!
So thank you very much, Becky, and members of our Tikvah programs across the country. This has been a busy summer already. Even though we're not meeting in person in our camps, it's been a very, very busy summer virtually. Participants in our Tikvah programs have been joining their peers in all kinds of activities, Shira, Rikud, Kabbalat Shabbat, Havdalah. You'll get to hear a lot more about that. I'm sure you read about that in the mailing that you got. So let's take a second to talk about what is Tikvah and how did we get here. Sometime in the late 1960s, two Long Island school teachers, special education teachers, Herb and Barbara Greenberg, had an idea that seemed crazy and outrageous at the time. The idea was to include people with disabilities in a Jewish summer camp. And there was all kinds of resistance. It would lower the level of Hebrew. It would disrupt the structure of camp. It would bankrupt the camps. The quote unquote normal kids would leave. And nobody wanted the program except one director, Donnie Edelman at Camp Ramah in Glen Spey, said, we'll take it because why should Ramah exist if not for this reason? And that is the beginning of changing the course of history for inclusion of people with disabilities in summer camps at Ramah and really throughout the Jewish world. That's how it started with 8 campers that summer in 1970. Each camp has its own story of how it began, including people with disabilities. Rabbi Mitch Cohen, our National Ramah Director, can tell you that when he was the director in Canada, they started Tikvah when he was there, and it changed things for everybody in camp. Fast forward to Camp Ramah in Northern California, and Rabbi Sarah Schulman and her board did not even want to open the doors of the camp unless Tikvah was part of it. So we've really seen a lot of wonderful changes over the years. Each camp proudly includes people with disabilities through Tikvah support, full inclusion, separate bunks, vocational training programs, people working on staff for salary, attending Israel programs. Tikvah has grown and evolved, and we are proudly still learning and growing each day from each other in the camping movement, from participants, from families, from professionals. We now have the National Ramah Tikvah Network, which I proudly direct, which connects our directors and staff, sharing best practices, helping families decide on which program to attend, more and more year-round activities like Shabbat is Calling and Shavua Tov. One important example of how we continue to grow is that we are striving to incorporate best practices and accommodations. Tonight, the program is being interpreted by ASL interpreter Rivka Hozinski and captioned by Joe Gale, who you can't see. You're welcome to click on the closed captioning for a full transcript, as that's a wonderful learning tool for many people. So welcome. I will just say that I was lucky enough to discover Tikvah by accident in 1984. I worked and learned from the Greenbergs. That one summer turned into 6 summers, turned into basically an entire life of being connected to the Tikvah program, and I really, really am so delighted. I obviously have many stories, but tonight is really a night to hear from so many people. We're all connected, assembled in one place on Zoom. You will hear from parents, from Tikvah alumni, from staff, from members of the Ramah community who will speak about what Tikvah means to them. So now I would like to turn this over to my colleague, Dr. Audra Kaplan.
Thanks, Howard. I feel like compared to Howard, I am relatively new to the Ramah system. I've been at Ramah Rome for 6 years. But for me, like many people, I was drawn to come work at Ramah Rome because I wanted to work and live in a Jewish community. For many of us campers and staff and those who come to visit our camps during the year, it's for this goal of living in a place that is just embodied with Judaism. Every meal you have, you begin with a prayer, you end with a prayer. Every activity you do, there is some Jewish value that you learn, whether it is community, taking care of one another, building a better world, tikkun olam. So for all of us who are part of these communities, those values are there. And then in addition, for our campers and staff and community members with disabilities, to have these opportunities, it is just such a different element for them. For many people, they tell me at home, They don't have the day schools or religious schools that are able to teach to their learning styles or to teach to their children's learning styles. So being able to be at camp and live Jewishly and have that immersion and learn Hebrew, learn about Israel and our traditions, for them, it is such a unique opportunity. And when we approach this summer, even in the decisions that all of the Ramah camps were making about whether we could meet in person this summer, when that decision came down to the fact that we would have to exclude some of our members based on their medical needs, you know, to me, I had this epiphany that we were no longer the camp community if we're going to start excluding people. So for me, and I think Howard said this to me the other day, it's not a question of why do we include people with disabilities, but it's really what would we be if we didn't. And for me, that is really the core value of Ramah and National Ramah and all of the camps, is this value of our community is not complete without all of our members. I think there are some unique aspects for all sorts of learners in camp because we're using our senses, we're learning in different ways. One example I love to think about is Havdalah. For all of us, I think we all love the magic of Havdalah, but when you step back and think about how it incorporates all of the senses, you know, we have the aromas of the bisamim, the spices, the visuals of the Havdalah candle, the kinesthetic movement of everyone singing and swaying together, the sounds of the prayers. For any type of learner, there'd be a piece to learn from that, and then pulling it all together, it really deepens what that tradition is. And it just takes it out of just learning about Havdalah, the end of Shabbat, to really learning it and living it. And for me, that's what is so unique about camp. Another piece is the repetition. One of the things I love about camp is every night the counselors say the Shema with the campers. And if you have a camper in camp for 1 week, a month, 2 months, saying the Shema every night at bedtime, I'm going to get a call a week or two after camp, a month after camp, from a family who wants to share with me, you know what my child does every night before they go to bed? They pull me into their room and we say the Shema together. For me, that's what a Jewish community is. And I feel it's a gift to be a part of that. When Howard and I were planning for this program tonight, we realized that we could tell our Jewish stories, but so much more important is to hear the stories of the people in our community who have been supported, people who have worked, people who work at camp, and really hear the way that Ramah and Tikvah has impacted their Jewish journey. We are going to begin in a moment with our first panelist. If anyone has a question for a panelist, if you could please put it in the chat, and I'm gonna ask Nancy if she could keep an eye on the chat and see if there's any questions. And then time permitting at the end, we'll come back to your questions. We wanna make sure that each of our panelists are going to have a chance to tell their story. So we are going to begin with Sam. Sam, are you all set to share your Jewish story and how Ramah and Tikvah has helped you develop your Jewish identity?
Yep.
All right, turning the floor to you.
Oh, okay, so the first question was to talk about their camp experience. So I went to Camp Ramah, New England from 2002 to 2018. I went through the Tikvah program, first Ami's team, and then Vocad for many years, and then moved to a full-time staff member in 2012.
Thanks, Sam. You can answer all the questions at once. That'd be totally fine. Just tell us about it, and then we can make it easier that way. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Oh, and I forgot to share that my fondest memory was free swimming in the Agam, and included with that is jumping off the dock with friends and saying crazy words. The next question was, in what ways do you see and experience people with disabilities included at camp? So, you know, Camp Ramah has a lot of programs with other adults that are included with Army Team, such as Go Green Buddies or Mahone Helpers. Also, I know in Voc Ed, there's Voc Ed Buddies. So, and then also I think that they have some activities that are both mixed with Army Team, with Army Team and another ADO sometimes. The next, number 3, was how do you think Tikvah benefits supported campers? Please include ways with campers with disabilities. So I said that they have, sorry, we have a very bad thunderstorm going on, so
Oh, no.
hope you can hear me. That they have Shabbat services, not Shabbat, Tefillah every morning, and Jewish learning, and they participate in Shabbat services. And then let's see what else. What's that? Number 4.
What ways does the rest of the community benefit by having Tikvah?
Oh, so number 4 is, in what ways does the rest of the community benefit from Tikvah? And I think that they benefit because they learn, you know, not everybody looks the same, is the same, learns the same, that kind of thing. And it's, a lot of it is about acceptance and stuff like that.
Yeah. How has working at Ramah impacted your educational and career path?
So the 5th question is, how has Ramah impacted my career path? So I worked in many jobs at camp, but the one that really stuck with me is I worked in the Gan for many summers, and now I'm an assistant teacher at our synagogue in the preschool. And then the last question is,
What advice would you give for the next 50 years?
So what advice would I have for the next 50 years is just, I don't know, continue with all the great programming that we already have for both Army Team and Voc Ed. And now there's like, I know there's even like Voc Ed, there's all these new programs like Voc Ed Marbar and stuff like that. So I would just, I don't know if I would have anything to add to it, but just continue with what you're already doing.
Great.
And I think that's it.
Thank you, Sam, so much. If you have other thoughts after all the panelists, let me know and we can swing back to you. But thank you so much for sharing your story. And it sounds like your school really benefits from your experiences at camp. I think we are turning to Austin. Austin, are you all set to share?
Yeah, I'm all set.
All right.
All right, so the first question is talk about your camp experience, which program and funnest memories. So I attend the Tikvah program in Camp Ramah, Wisconsin. I've been in Tikvah 5 years, 2008 to 2013. Then I switched over to Atzmaim for 3 years, which is a vocational program in Wisconsin for 3 years for 2014 to 2016. And then one of my best memories for Tikva was pitching for the Mahone softball team when we played other adults. My favorite memory in Atzmaim was working in town, Eagle River, and different job sites of my 3 summers in Atzmaim. So the 3 jobs I started is I was working at Walgreens, then I was working at Hiawatha Hotel in Wisconsin, and then my 3rd summer I was working at Ace Hardware. In what ways do you see experienced people with disabilities include at camp? I always felt included by new Tikvah campers at camp. And then how do you think Tikvah benefits Tikvah support campers? Please include ways in which campers with disabilities develop their Jewish identity. So Tikvah campers do the most of the same thing as the other campers. We pray, we do activities, we sleep and live in the same type of cabin. The only thing we did different was we had social skills group for 1 period every day. In social skills in Atzmaim, I learned how to be an independent living with a roommate in a dorm. How did it help me with my Jewish identity? I learned how to lead Friday night Mariv and Shabbat morning Musaf services, as well as how to learn to read Torah at camp. So I become comfortable being Jewish. In what ways does the rest of the community benefit by having persons with disabilities in camp? Mahone campers learn how much the Tikvah campers appreciate them and like being friends with them. Same thing with Nivonim, also appreciated with us in Atzmaim since we pray with them together every Saturday morning. How has working at Ramah impact an educational and career path? My 3 summers working in Atzmaim taught me the skills and prepared for me for my job in food service at Mercy Hospital in St. Louis. I have been working there for 3 years. The last question is, if you were constantly the National Ramah Tikvah Network, what advice would you offer for the next 5 to 10 years? Making sure you continue to have Atzmaim programs to teach them independently and job skills. That's pretty much all I have.
Thank you, Austin. That was awesome. I'm curious, who won the game when you had the challenge?
That's a good question. 2013, when I was playing on the Mikvah softball game, it was for Bogrim against Mikvah, which is Mahon and Tikvah together. Mikvah actually won against Bogrim, and the Nivonim was a pretty hard competitor, to be, but they won by a couple. But I was kind of really upset with that game, but they earned that win, so I just let them.
That's awesome. Sounds like a lot of fun.
I'm
curious. I'll ask later. I'm curious if Ralph played too.
No.
All right. Thank you so much, Austin. We appreciate it. We are going to turn a little bit to some parents on our panel. We're going to start with Dan and Claude Wynn. Go ahead. Try again. We couldn't hear you last time. Try again. All right, you know what? If it's okay, we'll segue to Sherry and Carl Zeff. And if you guys want to log off and log back in, because sometimes that will reset the sound. All right, we got to be flexible and pivot. That's what we do at camp.
Okay, hi, I'm Sherry.
All right,
Zeff.
Sherry and Carl, are you guys ready to share?
Yeah, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Yes? Okay, so I'm Sherry Zeff, and this is my husband, Carl, and our younger son, Mickey. We live in Sacramento, California, and I like to tell people that we are a Ramah family. My husband, Carl, grew up at Ramah in Ojai, Ramah, California, from the late 60s, is that right, to I think 1978 or 9. I attended there once as a camper in Mahon when I was 14, and then came back a few years later to work on staff, and that's actually the summer that I met my husband. So we are a Ramah marriage that came from that summer. I like to tell people that Carl was my dummy. I taught it swimming at the pool, and when I had to teach artificial respiration, we had no mannequins, so Carl volunteered for the job. So we have two boys. Our older son, Danny, like his father, grew up at Ramah in Ojai. He was there probably from about 2000, 2001, all the way up. He went to Ramah Seminar. He came back and worked on staff for a few years as a counselor, and later on as a film specialist. And then we have Mickey. Mickey has autism. And it was felt that when he turned 11, which is where they start the Tikvah program at Ramah Ojai, that he perhaps was not ready. The program seemed to be geared towards individuals on a higher cognitive and verbal functioning. And so we revisit it with the director every few years. And as the years went by, it was still thought that perhaps he would not be able to fit into the program that they had there. So I kind of just gave up on it. And then along came Rabbi Sarah Schulman. The Ramah NorCal, Ramah Galim, had just opened up the summer before. It had its Tikvah program. And they were looking to start the Ezra program, which is for the young adults. So I sat down with her at Kiddush lunch. She was, at our synagogue. And I told her a little bit about our family, about Mickey. And I knew the Ezra program in Ojai from talking to people. The participants were very verbal, and we're able to run the cafe and do all kinds of things. And this is not where Mickey was at. But we talked and we talked, and she put me in touch with Howard. And they decided that Mickey could actually benefit from camp. And at that time, he was the only applicant, or potential applicant, and they were willing to take a chance and design the program around him. A few weeks later, along came a guy totally on the opposite end of the autism spectrum, very verbal, very high functioning, and yet they were able to accommodate these two young men. So what I'd like to say is, as far as addressing advice for future years, is a few things. One, don't discount anyone, no matter where they are in their function ability. There's probably a camp out there somewhere in the national system, maybe not every program. Some can handle physical disabilities, some cannot. Some are geared more for higher functioning, some can handle lower. So don't discount anybody. It is important to provide that Jewish camping experience. Mickey's not very verbal, but he knows lots of brachot and sings beautifully. And he was able to go and have a very successful time. He's been 3 years, and this would have been his fourth. You know, there's the concept of B'Tselem Elohim. We're all created in God's image, and we all have a gift to give. And Rabbi Sarah Schulman tells a wonderful story about how one day she was walking along, saw a group of campers and staff huddled. She heard, as she got closer, she heard singing. And as she got right up there, she saw that Mickey, this fairly nonverbal participant, or minimal verbal, was there with his guitar. He was singing, and everybody was joining in with him. And that is inclusion at its best. So I really want to give a shout out to Rabbi Sarah Schulman and to Howard for making this possible. Nikki, you want to say hi? Can you say hi? Please wait.
I don't.
All right, no hi. So thank you very much for including us.
Should we do? Hi, can you hear us this time?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you for including us again. I'm Dan.
I'm Claude.
And our daughter Maya has been going to Ramah for quite a while. She was in the Tikvah program in New England in 2014 and 15. And then at Ramah Darom since then with Audra. Before that, as a family, we attended Camp Yofi, which is the family camp for families with autistic children at Camp Ramah Darom since 2005. So Maya's 20, and so for 15 years, she's been going to Ramah in some way. And even those short Camp Yofis, anyone who knows Maya knows she's really into song and dance. And so she would remember the dances, and we'd bring home the CDs, and so it lasts the whole year, every year. And now, of course, there's the Zoom that continues as well, thanks to...
Hello, I'm Zach.
Hi, Zach.
Can I say hi to you guys?
Hi.
Nice to see you, Zach.
Some of the benefits we've seen for Maya has been around her Jewish identity. She's had a lot of years now, and she's become more and more connected to Judaism. And she has a much younger brother who's having a bar mitzvah in April 2021. So he's preparing for his bar mitzvah, and Maya is very, very into it, very excited, and she's pretty eager to learn Hebrew. She just started some Hebrew tutoring, actually with our son's tutor as well. She's doing her own tutoring session and learning Ashrei, and she's just, I think his bar mitzvah next year is going to be so much more integrated as a family because of all the preparation Maya has had all these years. And so it's we're looking forward to it as a, being more of a family event than something where we have to manage two children separately, which is often the case. Do you want to talk about some of the other things we've seen?
Well, the Ramah is just the gift that keeps on giving, because throughout the year we have communications. Audra and the team have had these monthly conversations that continue the community, her beautiful camp community, all year long. And Maya will not miss, as you know, Audra, when's the next one? She always wants to know. And she's even had the opportunity to go in and meet with a former counselor a couple of times right in New York City, which isn't far from us. And just the thought that a counselor would reach out and invite Maya to join her for the day in the city is just mind-boggling and beautiful, and makes Maya so happy. Yeah.
And I think we both wanted to add that one of the things we find is that the staff are great role models for Maya. I think we've seen that more the last couple of years as Maya's grown into a young woman, how she has all these fabulous young women role models at camp. It's just so important. As everyone knows, whether you have a typical child or an atypical child, to have those great models and to know that there's people like Audra and Howard who are recruiting and interviewing and hiring and being very selective.
And supporting and training.
And supporting. There's like, you know, the quality control all throughout the summer. And so the training, I mean, Maya came back last summer talking about fitness and eating healthy and eating salad. And I suspect that came from one of the staff members. And it's just a great lesson to come home with. So, you know.
Yeah, it's been an incredibly invaluable experience. And, you know, after, just one more thing, after Maya finished her Yofi experience when she aged out and she was 13, I hadn't the vision that Maya could ever possibly do a sleepaway camp. She just wasn't a child that, you know, that was an obvious fit. But to lose the camp experience, so it was this sort of challenge. And we went to a very similar panel in person because there was no COVID at that time. And parents just encouraged us so much by the words they said about life changing and the best part of the year for their kids. And that's what got us to do that, plus just the support that Ramah provided got us to carry on the camp experience. If anyone's wondering if they should do it, do it. You won't regret it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan and Claude, for sharing your family's journey, and I'm so privileged to be part of that with Maya. We are going to segue and hear some stories of staff who've worked at camp. Zachary, I saw you had your hand up. I'm going to give you a minute to, did you have a question or did you want to share something?
Oh, I just want to say my name is Zach, by the way. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're here.
Thank you. Oh, and my birthday's coming up, by the way.
All right, if there's time at the end, maybe we could do a Yom Haledet for you. Happy birthday. We are going to turn to Adina Beiner, who has been a camper and worked at Ramah Darom for a number of years. And the past couple of summers has been a Rosh Dah, a unit head. Adina, I'm going to pass to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited and honored to be able to speak here. So my name is Adina Beiner. I'm coming from Ramah Darom, where I spent 7 years as a camper and then 8 on staff. And most recently, I was in the role of a Rosh Dah for the past few years. And some of my fondest memories are of the people I met at camp and the friends I've made and that I still have today. And also looking back at my experience, I've spent about the same time as a kid and as a camper and as a young adult. So camp has really started to take on a new meaning and role in my life over the last few years. So one of the most amazing things that I feel like I got to see was seeing the start of Tikvah at Darom. It wasn't something I grew up with when I was a camper, but in recent years, it has totally become a part of the core of the Ramah Darom community. And it really feels incomplete when thinking about a time where Darom existed and there was no Tikvah program there. And as a Rosh Dah the past few summer, I worked with several campers supported by Tikvah in the Edah. And embracing the inclusion model that Darom has in the last few years means that campers supported by Tikvah are everywhere. So in the cabins, playing basketball, eating meals together, participating in programs. And as the Tikvah program grows, it's also amazing seeing campers who were supported by Tikvah coming back and being part of Tsevet on staff, part of the vocational program, and seeing that journey continue. And also, I think that Tikvah at Ramah Darom has made camp so accessible to so many campers who have not previously been able to be supported at camp before. And Darom's Tikvah program benefits Tikvah supported campers in so many ways. Like just as everyone needs something different, it's almost impossible to name all the different ways Tikvah supports every camper. So from building schedules that work for everyone and helping counselors plan pulot that keep in mind everyone's needs and just so much more. It also has allowed campers supported by Tikvah to have this amazing, unique Jewish experience that that camp offers, that special camp experience alongside their peers. And there are opportunities to connect through tefillah, through Jewish programs, being outside, and just being a part of this Jewish community. I think also another really unique thing is that camp creates a safe space to try new things. So whether it's trying a new food or leading the bracha for that new food, or being in a new tefillah service, or having an aliyah for the first time. And these are experiences I've watched campers supported by Tikvah have, and also not only just to have those, but also to be surrounded and supported by their whole community. And camp is really like a place to grow for everyone in that safe and exciting space. And I think the rest of the community surrounding Tikvah benefits in so many ways. From having people with disabilities in camp with staff members, it pushes us to think about all campers and not just those supported by Tikvah, but how are we really thinking about this pula or this trip or this experience, and understanding the different needs that everyone will have. It also allows us to really practice what we preach of Jewish values and welcoming everyone, and what it means to be friends with everyone. Everyone needs something different, what it means to love everyone around you. And I think for all of our campers, it's so important and powerful to understand that the person next to you might need something different or experience something different from you. A beautiful thing, and it's a really beautiful thing to learn and understand how to be a part of a community that holds everyone and embraces everyone. So also, as campers are integrated into the Eidot, they grow with the Eidah over the years. And in particular, I saw one group of campers that welcomed campers supported by Tikvah the very first summer that Tikvah started at Ramah Darom. And I watched as this particular Eidah, who I was the Rosh Eidah for at the time, embrace these new campers into their Eidah. And they grew up together, and they've experienced all these milestones now over the years, and learning how to love and support one another. And this group's now graduating high school, and seeing how those friendships are continuing. And some are about to embark together, hopefully on gap year programs, and be back at camp together on staff. And really just seeing the power of community and how much Tikvah has been embraced during the summer and also beyond. And I think that's a really beautiful, special thing. On a personal note, I'm in the field of Jewish education. And I've always known I wanted to go into Jewish education, but I think where Tikvah's really, where working at Ramah, and especially with Tikvah, has impacted my own thinking, is really pushing me to understand, looking at Jewish education and thinking, how can I enter into every Jewish space and ask, is this a place where everyone is welcome and where everyone can be supported and can feel loved and have this experience be accessible to them? And it really it showed me how to embrace these Jewish values that Tikvah embodies of love and chesed, kindness, and just to name a few, and really giving me these tools to think about what that looks like concretely, but then also just to have that mindset to really take what Tikvah has created in camp and to take and see how I can infuse that in my work during the year and beyond camp. And so, yeah, I feel really honored to have been able to be a part of, to see the growth of the Ramah Darom Tikvah program and to share that with you all tonight.
Thank you, Adina. We appreciate you taking time tonight to join us, and of course, enjoy working with you. I think we are turning to Maya Alvin.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me now?
Thanks, Maya.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, I'm Maya. A little bit about me and my Ramah experience is I spent about 10 summers at Camp Ramah in Canada, combined as a counselor and as a camper. So for 4 summers, I worked on staff at Ramah in Canada, 3 of which I was involved with the Tikvah program there, 2 of which I was doing vocational work, 1 I was a counselor. And last year, I ventured to a different Ramah camp. I went to Ramah Darom as a staff member for the first time and helped them start up their vocational program along with Audra. And I'd say my fondest memories at Ramah related to Tikvah are probably just those moments where you can see growth with the campers. And I think that a lot of staff, whether you have campers supported by Tikvah or not, would say that those are really foundational moments for them. Giving one example, the most concrete way is seeing campers progress from needing more hand-over-hand direct verbal support to work in our in-camp coffee shop, Café de Rome, or the Keeping It Kosher Cafe at Ramah, Canada, to me sitting outside the cafe and talking to people because they're completely running the show by themselves. So just seeing that skill development progress is an amazing memory for me. And to answer a couple of questions about what ways I see the experiences of people with disabilities included at camp and some other things, is I think that having the Tikvah program at both camps that I've worked at has really normalized the concept of ability and disability for all campers, and is a really large factor in why Ramah camps are known for their amazing kahila. So on one level that might be a little more obvious is it's really great to see our campers and staff who are supported by Tikvah form friendships and have meaningful experiences that build their Jewish identity. So whether that's reading from the Torah, leading tefillot, participating in Havdalah, just to name a few. But I think on another level, which is a little less obvious on the surface, is the ways that each individual, whether they work at camp or go to camp, is shaped by the interactions and friendships that they form with people supported in the Tikvah program and in general. So at camp, we meet people who are different from us in so many ways. Different interests from different cities, different denominations of Judaism at home. Some go to Jewish day school, some don't. But we're all at camp to build a meaningful Jewish experience and meet people who share our values, but are somewhat different than ourselves, or else it wouldn't be fun to meet anyone new. So with this basis of kahila in our community, I really think a big thing that Tikvah adds is teaching everyone that we have a lot more in common than we do that's different with each other. And overall, this experience of embracing diversity, I've seen shape our campers into be more caring individuals and learning, as many people have talked about already, how to find commonalities and build friendships with everyone. For me personally, how working at Ramah has impacted my educational path, it's for sure influenced me as a Jewish young adult, the way I see Judaism, but professionally, I'm currently studying speech language pathology, and I think a lot of what influenced me to pursue that path was my experience with the Tikvah program at camp. And I definitely could see myself being involved in the disability field as a speech pathologist. And I think a place where I really fell in love with helping people with their communication was helping with advocacy and forming friendships at camp. And my final bit is, if I were to have to give any advice for national for the next 10 years, I think that one unique perspective I have is I've been pretty involved with the online vocational program that we've started for these past few weeks. I think Howard mentioned at the beginning, but it's really been wonderful to see nearly 50 young adults from across the Tikvah program, some current participants in VOCED programs, some alumni come together, meet new friends and learn together. And I see a lot of familiar faces from those programs here tonight, which is awesome. So I think that that's a great way to keep moving forward. I know it only really came about because of COVID, which is an unfortunate situation, but for there to be a connectivity and a national Tikvah network that continues for years to come with this strength would be great to see.
Thank you. Thanks, Maya. I'd like to now introduce Ralph Schwartz. I think that one of the things that Ralph and I share is that we both had the privilege of working with and learning from Tikvah's founders, Herb and Barbara Greenberg. And over the last, 30 or 40 years, Ralph, I think how many times have we said that we hear the voices of Herb and Barbara, who are both alive and well and living in Israel, like in our heads. And I think that it's so wonderful to meet them in Israel, because I don't think they could have ever imagined that they would have really changed the course of history. I know that sounds really dramatic, but the one director saying yes in 1970 led to Ramah going down this road, led to all of Jewish camping, and it's really thanks to them. So Ralph really represents someone who's worked with the Greenbergs at Ramah, New England. Ralph holds a distinction of probably directing the most Tikvah programs in our Ramah system. Ralph is the founding director of the Brera Ramah program at Ramah Berkshires, and it's had like a third career working for many, many years directing the Tikvah program in Wisconsin. So Ralph, we'd love to hear from you to wrap up our panel. Just please unmute yourself.
It's boy, I think we should just stop now, because yep, it's pretty amazing. I walked in 1977 to Camp Ramah, New England, to the Tikvah program, and I didn't know a soul. And it's clear that Herb and Barbara Greenberg were so far ahead of their time. It's unbelievable that I still find myself thinking back and using stuff that I learned those years. If I do one shout out for those years to Arlene Rems, who met her husband Sandy during those summers. I finished up in 81 as the Rosh Hashanah. And at that point, I thought I was supposed to, that's when you grow up and leave camp. I was able to come back to start the Brera program, and I want to call out Barbara Mann, who was extremely instrumental in that program starting, which, if I'm correct, was really the first Ramah attempt at inclusion, and it was pretty out there, and at one point pretty scary, and amazingly successful. And then in 06, my family moved, and we were in Chicago, and from 06 to the present, I've been, working in Tikvah in Wisconsin. I would say it's hard to come up with fondest memories, but two of the biggest ones are, one is watching our Machon campers entering 9th grade, who become Chaverim for our Tikvah campers, and you see the light bulb go off in their head, and they start to really get it, and then they continue helping out with Tikvah, and then after seminar, they come back on staff in Tikvah. The other amazing moment is Machon and Tikvah put on a play together. And at the beginning of the summer, these two adot are trying to coordinate a play, which is really hard. And by the week of the play, these two adot are almost one. And going through the final rehearsals and the play itself, it's just an amazing sight to see. As far as Tikvah's effect on camp, we're becoming more and more inclusive. Before the 70s, no one would ever think to have a camp for neurotypical and regular and kids with social and emotional issues. And now you just take it for granted. And I'd say every year or two, we cross a new boundary, whether it's what they do in camp, working in camp, staff members. It just continues to go on and on and on. And I sometimes think the only limitations are the ones we have in our heads and our preconceived notions. And most importantly, you really need staff people who, as I like to say clinically, really get it. And they're the ones who are open-minded and willing to take the chances. Tikvah helps kids be kids, gain confidence in themselves, learn how to ask for help. And for too many, it's the first time they're accepted by the Jewish community. I'm all Tikvah directors hear this too many times in various cities, that it's the first place that that they were welcomed by the Jewish community. And its effect on the camp, it really becomes a win-win. It's hard to measure, but it makes camp more sensitive, caring, supportive for all campers and staff. It helps all of us see that we all have our strengths, we all have our challenges, and that we all can't be good at everything. All right. Tikvah's impact on me. Wow. It's clearly been the defining moment in my life. After I left New England in the early 80s, first of all, my undergrad degree was in special ed. My graduate degree was in social work. So I was very much involved in Jewish special needs and Jewish special education. But I started working in a psychiatric hospital. And I was working there into the mid 90s when, I don't know, things, God had some other plans for me. And with four children, I suddenly found myself diagnosed with cancer and pretty serious moments. And luckily I was, treatment was successful and I'm still here. But what it did was it just let me know that life is too short and that if there's anything you want to do in life, you better do it because you don't know how much time you got. And a year later, I was living in Baltimore at the time, and a year later, 2 years later, this ad in the New York Times for this new program starting at Ramah, Berkshires. And, it kind of like, I felt like, well, there was the sign from God about what I was supposed to do. Even though I thought there was no way they would hire someone who lives out of New York. The other piece was I was working in a psychiatric hospital, so I had to turn upside down and become a school social worker. So I'd be off in the summer, so I could work, continue working at camp. I would say, as far as advice, is keep opening doors to diverse Jewish kids and teen population. To reinforce what Maya just said, we've clearly seen that there is a need for year-round programming for Tikvah and the vocational programs. As Ramah's already realized, we need some separate funding streams because it's too frustrating to not be able to do a program because you don't have the money for it when you see the need for it. And last but not least, it's amazing to meet people on Zoom or wherever and mention the word Tikvah, and all of a sudden you have this amazing kinship that's kind of hard to describe, like you're in the club. And it's a really special club, and I love being in it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ralph, and really thank you, everybody. What an incredible evening. I think Audra and I had the right approach, which was to say less and listen to our wonderful panelists who really, are the true rock stars, really represented every perspective. We could have probably had hundreds more, but just hearing, even those who've been doing this for 30 years with Ramah, it's so wonderful to hear these stories. And just looking at the names of participants, I know Ralph singled out a few people, but I see families who have been connected to camp from 30 years ago, and families and participants and staff. We've had more than 60 people here, and it's just so moving. So I want to thank everybody. I want to respect everybody's time. And I know in the East Coast it's 9 o'clock, and the West Coast it's earlier. And really invite you to continue celebrating with us. Nancy Schaefer, our communications director, was wonderful and helped send out this beautiful communication with so much resource in one place. We have some of the people from our vocational online program. We've had some of our alumni, Sam and Austin were two of them. We've actually recorded their career path, which is very interesting. We have some Tikvah Impact podcasts we'd love for you to listen to. There are a lot of resources on our website. There are a lot of activities that are happening this week, things like Shira and Rikud, and we're going to have movie clips for parents and also for staff. And I guess the last thing I want to just encourage you to do I know that this is not the moment for us to be going to Israel, but Israel, things are going to turn around beautifully. We've timed our Ramah Israel bike ride and hike to be every 2 years. So this year we did not have one, but it is an amazing experience. We have 3 levels of bike ride and 2 levels of hike. And most importantly, this Ramah unifying experience, people from all the different camps. We've had participants from Tikvah programs, and we've had parents and supporters and lovers of camp and lovers of Israel. And it's really our biggest fundraiser in support of all the Tikvah programs. And at the end of the ride, every camp gets a very nice check to support their programs and the ongoing work as we continue to evolve. I know that Nancy put a link, the link on the site to that mailing about Tikvah at 50 and ADA at 30. So finally, I invite anybody who'd like to continue the conversation with me. It's just howard@campramah.org. And we're so appreciative. And thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, everybody. Laila Tov.